I can't. I cannot believe it's week 4. Only 20 more weeks to go.
It'll go by itself, huh?
It will. Streamers, now is your chance to let us know if the stream sucks. Since we've got 2 of you today. I heard she was really sick, but I don't know if she died. Alright. Stephanie has started recording already, so we're good on that front. I remember. We're going to get started in just a moment, everyone. All right, let's get started. So, I heard that everyone's a JavaScript expert now after Saturday. Yeah? Okay. All right. One thing I wanted to ask while we're at the beginning of class, like I get that this stuff's really hard, so you've been in a few sessions with Daniel, you've seen how he teaches, you've been in sessions with me now, you know, we're relatively comfortable with each other. Are there any things I could be doing, your TAs could be doing to improve this process for you all? Now that you kind of see how hard it gets sometimes and we're all kind of aware of maybe some of the problems that arise, what can we do better? One of the things already I know that I want to do better, for instance, that rock, paper, scissors activity, I feel like I kind of left you in the dark too long, and I feel like if every 10-minute interval I gave you like a hint, right? That would have been better, right? So next time we get to a big project like that where we're doing it together, I'm going to try to help kind of step us through this process, especially if I see people starting to struggle. So that was my bad. I felt really bad about it. But if there's anything else that anyone has that like, hey, maybe it'd be nice if we did X, Y, Z, let us know. Because now's the time while we're still early in the class and we still have a pretty small foundation. It may not feel like it, but we do to work with. So any recommendations? Okay, well, other than that, homework and stuff, hope that's going well for everyone. Everyone's got that in. Everyone's been doing it, right? The TAs are on top of that, so we know if you haven't. This is a kind of a hypothetical question. I know if you haven't, but everyone's kind of turned it in, right? Yeah, we're feeling good. If you haven't, make sure you get something in, right? It's okay if it's not a final product. It's okay if it's got bugs. It's okay if it's only 50% implemented. As long as you've done work to prove that you're trying to get this homework done and that you are learning, you'll get a grade that'll help you get through this course, and we won't have to worry about it, okay? Because that's what we want. I don't want to deal with any of the crap of having to say, well, this person didn't turn in 5 homeworks, what do we do? Especially at the end of the class. So just turn in your homeworks. Even if they're not perfect, it's cool. You can go back and fix them later if you want to. It's not a problem. So PowerPoints, finally. I think this is like the last week that we have to give any, so that's good because they suck. I hate them. And reality is me showing you a PowerPoint like this guy, lady, whoever this is coding, like what does that do? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help you learn how to code better. And I mean, frankly, me teaching you only helps you so much, right? Really, what it is when you're doing it, that's when you learn. So there's only so much these PowerPoints can do, and I don't like them at all. They suck. Anything anyone wants to talk about or add before we move on to talking about class? No? Okay. Cool. So,
One thing I might, sorry.
no, go for it, man. Yeah, this is the time.
One thing that might help somewhat, at least it helped me with that, is block diagram.
Block diagrams of what?
A little bit more like flow of like if conditions and flow statements. A little
Okay.
bit block of, you know.
I like that idea. Yeah, we can kind of draw out what's happening with the logic to kind of separate it from the syntax.
Yeah.
So I've heard from a few people that the syntax is really hard, right? Remembering all the syntax is really hard. It kind of takes away from what is really happening with the JavaScript, and that's a great suggestion. Thanks. We can kind of draw out the flow of the logic separately from the syntax, so we don't got to remember that while we're talking about how this program is supposed to work. And it's actually a great tool when you're a professional to figure out how these things work, right? Think about it in terms of a flow. There's diagrams called UML diagrams for diagramming out how things interact. There's sequence diagrams for the sequence of actions in a program. So there's lots of ways to do that. So yeah, we can go ahead and try that next time we get to something that's complicated in terms of logic. I don't know how much it'll help with some of the stuff we're doing today, but you know, when we get to logic, we talk about it, and like for loops and stuff. Just do a quick poll. How are people feeling about functions? If I told you write a function for me right now, what do we got? To do what? That doesn't matter. Just write me a function that console logs something or something like that, right? Simple. But I want a function. Okay? Okay. What if I said, write me a for loop that's going to console log? How does everyone feel about that? And in the for loop, we'll console log the numbers. Okay? Okay, so for loops are also pretty tough. What about give me an array and print out all the indices of the array without a for loop. Just print the indices of an array. If I said do that right now, how are we feeling? Better on that one for most people. Okay. All right. Okay. So it's tough, right? It was all over the board. Some people were like, okay, I'm good with functions. Some people are like, okay, for loops are okay, right? Yeah, there's a lot we've covered, right? Those are just 3 things, but even those require a lot of work and a lot of stuff to remember, right? The arrays have like these brackets, and the for loops have curly braces. But what the curly braces are, what are they for? The if-else statements, you know, when do I do an else? When do I do an else if? How many do I need? Or whatever. Like there's a lot we've covered. So if there's a particular pain point someone has, especially in this first like 30 minutes of class, maybe we can talk about that too while I'm going over these initial examples. So if there's something like, hey, can we turn that into an if statement? We can try, or something like that, right?
I feel like something that's like really helpful for me is like learning the keyboard shortcuts. Like
Sure.
There's a snippet that I learned about on Saturday
Sure.
for a for loop that he just flew through it. I was like, wait, how did you just do that?
Yeah.
And he just flew through it and didn't tell us how to do it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so learning shortcuts and snippets and stuff to help you do that.
Like, help a lot.
Yeah, so snippets are going to help because they're going to have the syntax for you, right? So you won't have to remember it. The only downside is if you get too dependent on it, you may never remember it, right? So, I mean, the upside is you get to write it fast. So I would say once you're comfortable with that for loop syntax and you just kind of want to get it done, learning the snippets and the shortcuts are really good. Any I have, I'll share. I don't know for loop snippet in VS Code off the top of my head.
I don't know.
Yeah, so...
It just popped up on the screen. I was like, what?
Yeah, there might be something in VS Code that just...
Yeah, it was a VS Code.
Type 4 and tab or something. Okay. Yeah, so we'll try to play with those, and if I find any, feel free to ask. What's up, Jess?
It was the autocomplete.
Oh, is it autocomplete? So he probably, went
So
down,
he
hit
typed
tab.
4 and he selected the.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll share those. That's a good one. Definitely share those. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about before we move on? Okay. All right, so I'm going to post a link into the channel. You don't got to look at it yet, but basically it just talks about the DOM. We're going to talk about the DOM today and what the DOM is, because we're going to do some DOM manipulation. So DOM, D-O-M, stands for the Document Object Model. Basically what it is when we have that fun HTML that we see rendered, right? And you open up the dev tools, you can actually look at the dev tools and you can see like properties related to the HTML, or you can see like CSS related to it, right? and this rendering of the HTML tags as like objects in JavaScript is the DOM. So it's a way that we can view the HTML elements inside of JavaScript. And that's why it exists, and that's what it's for, and that's why JavaScript is valuable, because you can change it. You can do stuff, manipulate it. So an example of DOM manipulation, now this one uses jQuery, which we'll go over today, is this is a static page, right? This page doesn't ever refresh or anything, and you can do stuff to it. So I could add give a lecture. Hit enter, and it creates this new item in this list. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. You can say, show me certain ones. Show me the completed ones. Oh, there's none of those. Show me all of them. Show me the active ones, right? Test something. You can see I'm adding them. I can complete one by clicking on it, and then it goes away. If I click completed, you see it. You know, all of this stuff is happening on the same page without reloading it, refreshing it from the server. So I'm not like creating a to-do and then that's sending me back HTML with like this check to do, right? So this is JavaScript manipulating the DOM. And with jQuery, what we're going to learn today makes that really easy. You can do it with raw JavaScript, and we're going to go over that first, but it's just more work. Now the thing is, I'm curious about this lesson and how it's going to go, because we're not all, it's clear, we're not all totally confident in just raw JavaScript yet. And we're going to be throwing jQuery on top, and jQuery is a library that we're going to use to do stuff easier for us. But the problem is, I ran into this the first cohort we went into, and we're going to run into it again, I'm sure, is jQuery is a set of functions that have special rules about them, right? And so if you don't totally understand what a function is doing and how you use it, jQuery is kind of an enigma. Not to say it's hard to use, because it's still not, if you understand the rules of how you use it. But it's just interesting that we're jumping into it so quickly, when we could probably use another day of JavaScript. So anyway, that in mind, this is an example, a quick example of something we can do. And that link that I sent out, you can check that out later or in a break or something to read more about the DOM if you want to know more about the DOM. But just know that it's a really nice way for us to manipulate the HTML. And then you can respond to click events and kind of deal with the HTML as you wish through the JavaScript, right? So understanding it, every HTML page is static and has a bunch of content on it. But with the JavaScript, like I just showed, you can go ahead and change that. So why don't I show an example? I'm going to open up this code. I want to open the containing folder. I'm going to open this with Chrome. All right. First things first, we need ourselves a script tag. Now remember, you don't need the whole text JavaScript thing. It's kind of extra code for no reason. Or the type JavaScript, I'm sorry. Not in HTML5 at least. And you're not writing HTML4 ever in this class, so whatever. So, what can we do with this? Well, we have this div that has an ID. That's the easiest one to work with in JavaScript, okay? So we can create a variable. We can call it our target div. How about? Okay? And using this thing called the document. Now, remember, we've used this document before. We've used console before, right? And I said that these special objects that kind of exist that we can just use. Document special, though, because it represents this DOM, this document object model. The document is your HTML document. So all of this HTML, once it's rendered on the page, is this document object, right? It exists. It has all of it in it. It's kind of a fun thing. There's a function that exists on it called getElementById, and in VS Code, as soon as I start typing, you can see it comes up. There's actually similar functions that exist. Get elements by class name, by tag. So you can see there's a lot of ways that we can grab elements in JavaScript. But we're going to use getElementById. Okay? So this is a function. I'm going to call a function. What do I need? Parentheses. Exactly. Thank you. Okay. GetElementById. Good job, Heather. GetElementById. So the idea is I'm getting an element by its ID. Who has any idea what I need to type here? Empty div?
Yeah.
Like that?
In quotes.
In quotes? Why do I need it in quotes? You don't know? In quotes is correct. Thank you, Peyton. We need it in quotes because it takes a string and the ID is, for all intents and purposes, a string in this case. So we need to pass it in as a string to this function so that it can actually work. If we just did empty-div, it'll freak out. It'll be like, whoa, what are you doing? Because it'll think it's something. I don't even know what it'll think it is. Just random text. So anyway, what we have in this variable now, which is pretty cool, is the div. It's the DOM representation of the div, and we can do a lot with it. So even in VS Code, if I just type in target div and then a dot, I can see all the crazy things I can do with this div. And I know it's kind of hard to see there, but there's like an access key, there's event listeners, I can animate it, I can append children to it, I can do all kinds of things, blur it, there's all kinds of stuff. There's properties on here, there's functions you can call. Now, does anyone know the difference between the blue icons and the purple icons inside of VS Code? The purple icons are functions that you can call. The blue icons are properties that you can change. So an example of a property is inner HTML. If it's a property, you can set it equal to something. If it's a function, like getElementById, if I show you again here, document.getElementById, it's purple, right? Purple icon, little square or cube. That's a function. So in VS Code, since we're all pretty much using that, it's a good thing to keep track of. If it's purple, I can use the function, okay? So remember that. And it's kind of like an identifier for you so you can know what you can do with that thing, that property or function or whatever. So anyway, with the target div inner HTML, what I can do is override the HTML inside of that div. Literally, that's what that property says. It's inside of the div right here. Boop, that's the inner HTML. What's in there right now? Literally nothing. I just go ahead and save this, refresh, and I got hello world. I have manipulated the DOM successfully with JavaScript. Our jobs are done. Let's go home. No? Okay. Anyway, there's a lot you can do. Now, this is inner HTML. So I can literally put HTML in here. So why don't I do style? It's red. And if I open this bad boy up, whoops, that's crazy. And I do the select elements thing, I've got a p tag right here in my empty div. Right? That's my DOM representation in actual HTML. Now again, I'm going to zoom out here really quick. You can see DOM breakpoints, there's properties associated with it, like right here. These Chrome DevTools, they give you a breakdown of these DOM objects because JavaScript allows you to have access to them, okay? So you can see we have styles, and we're familiar with the styles because we've seen the CSS related to elements that we have highlighted, right? But you can go to properties, and you can see other stuff related to it. So all of that stuff that I just saw in VS Code is also here. Again, I can look at it. These are all the properties, all the things I can set, right? So you'll notice that like the onKeyUp is right here too. Remember that onKeyUp function? That's a property technically that you set equal to a function, just to make it more confusing for you. But anyway, you can see that even the Chrome DevTools understand this DOM and what it can do and how it can be used. Okay, so it's really powerful. Now, what else can we do with the DOM? Well, why don't we, instead of doing like raw HTML just injected right into our inner HTML, why don't we find a more legitimate way to do this, okay? So this is cool. Now I'm just going to have it say hello world. If I can ever type, maybe. But then I can create a new element. There's another function called document.createElement. And I can tell it, you'll see here, it tells you all the elements you can create. VS Code's great, right? It tells you everything. In string format, I can give it a P, and have a new P tag. And I can do target div dot append child P tag. Okay? So let's take a look. What do y'all think this HTML is going to look like when it's rendered? So we have this empty div. We're changing the inner HTML, and then we're appending a P tag. What is this going to look like when we render it? Any ideas? How about a div with some text in it, followed by a P tag? Exactly as I wrote it out, right? We have our empty div. Hello world is in there, and then we have an empty p tag. Right? Kind of fancy. I can create HTML elements on the go. So if I had a for loop, or if I had an if statement or something, I could create HTML based off of those conditions and inject it dynamically into my web page. Right? And so, say I want my p tag to say something, I can do the text content, right? Whoa, dog. That's what hip kids say, right? Refresh it, and I've got my p tag with whoa dog in it now. That's pretty cool. But my p tag, unlike when I was doing with the inner HTML where I just injected raw HTML in it, okay? I want to set a style. And I want to do it dynamically. I don't want to set it to a class or anything like that. How can I do that? Funny enough, this p tag has a set attribute function where the first string is the attribute name. In this case, we want it to be style. And the second one is the attribute value. So why don't I make it color red? So now if I refresh, whoa dog now has that style with the color red. Because the DOM gives us full access to all of these HTML attributes and values. We can literally change anything on this page with raw JavaScript. Now why jQuery is nice, why people like it, is all of this stuff is way less work. What's up, Jesse?
So if I had an image, I could actually set the source attribute in this image?
Yep. So I said this is the first thing. If you have the source, you can just do ptag.source equals whatever the string is to the path. So yeah, any attribute. ID, you can even change the ID if you wanted to. ID, class, you can do data attributes, all kinds of crazy things that you'd want to do. Right?
So is that just the same as if you did like ptag.style.color before it? Or is that like...
Yes. But this one wouldn't be... Yeah, so the style might not be a good one because it looks like it gives you a nice abstraction for it. So it might be easier to do it this way. Right, it is. But yeah, it's effectively the same thing I did, but I did it more manually, right? So this is another nice thing about the DOM is you have access to some of the attributes, right? So I could do ptag.class. Here's class list. Class name. Let's call it test. Let's see what this does. Gave it a class called test. So if I go in here and I make a style tag and I make a class.test and I make the color heinous yellow that no one can see. Boom. We've got our heinous yellow, right? Make that bold so it's a little easier to see that heinous yellow. Nope, wasn't any easier. Anyway, so you can see there's lots of ways that we can do this with the DOM. So I can, again, just to reiterate and show you, I could just make this class really quickly and change that to test, and I get the same output. So there's lots of ways you can do it, and the DOM is kind of nice because it builds these abstractions, as we call them, for you to manipulate the HTML. And it's pretty easy. So let's go ahead and show a more complicated example maybe. So let's do three types of tests. Test one. It's going to be yellow, pink, nice, it's going to be good, and lavender. Ooh, yeah, it's going to be fun. Alright, so for loop, go ahead and go down here. There you go. Did 4, went down 1, hit tab, boom, opened it up, and it highlighted all the index. If I want to change it to I, boom, we're good. Just hit escape. Awesome. Hit escape again, and a third time, so you don't have the multiple cursors. Anyway, we want this to be var for now. So what am I going to do? I want to iterate through this array 3 times. Okay, from 1 to 3. They don't have any idea what I'm about to do. No? No one has any idea? Go ahead and create a p tag. Let's change the p tag dot text content equals this is p tag number and add I, and then we can do p tag dot set attribute class, and that is going to be test plus I. What are we gonna get? Well, right now we're gonna get nothing, but yes, the reason why we're not gonna get anything is I forgot to do target div dot what? Append child, where I pass in the p tag object. So now, as Rolando was saying, we're gonna get 3 p tags with different colors, right? Whoop, typo. Okay, now we have 3 ugly p tags that solve the problem, right? So you can see I used a couple things there. I used a for loop so we could get more exposure to that. We can visualize what actually happened. We created, on that first line in the for loop, we create a new p tag. Then we set the text content to this is p tag number something. I'm going to make sure we can see one of them. Bulk. Sick color, man. This is p tag number, whatever the index was. We're going to set the class, which we can then see here in the Chrome Inspector, test 1, 2, and 3, equal to test plus the index. And then we take the parent element, the target div, right? And we append the child. Any questions on this? So, if I wanted to change the... If I want to take all these p tags, and inside of them I want to insert a strong tag with the content, this is strong, what would I do? Anyone want to wager a guess? Walk me through it. Rolando, what's up? How do I do it? It's going to be in the for loop.
Yeah. Set attribute under the p tag. Alright, yes. You want me to do it before the append child or is it
Doesn't necessarily matter, but it makes sense to do the append child last, right?
So you set the attribute of style.
But I want a strong tag. I want a strong tag inside the p tag. How about, first things first, I create a strong tag.
Yeah.
Document dot create element, right? Strong. Find strong. And in the strong tag now I want it to say this is strong.
Strong text content equals strong.
Text content equals this is strong. String. Now I want to put it in the p tag. In the p tag. How on earth would I do that? There's 2 ways. p tag dot append child strong. Now let me just change these all to normal so that they're not all bold, so we can see the bold.
So if you're writing that in like HTML, it's almost like nesting strong within the p tag.
Yes.
Am I understanding that right?
Yep. Exactly. If we were writing it, it's like we see it there on the. It'd be like strong.
Yeah.
This is strong, right?
Yeah. So that's okay. So that's what the append child does.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
That is exactly what the append child does, right? So this is close to it. The last thing we need here is class equals test1, and we've effectively got the same thing again as test1. we replaced it, though. Oh, because we're doing the inner HTML. So, how do I fix this? Inner HTML, if I just set it equal to, totally blows away the HTML. But if I do plus equals, like we're adding two strings, right? Then I can add it to the current HTML. So now we have p tag number 1, and then we're recreating it here inside this for loop. Any questions on any of this? We're about to do an exercise that effectively does this. You're going to use all of these functions that I just showed you that are on the DOM. So if you have questions about any of them, ask it now, because we're about to do an exercise that literally you have to do this. Cool. All right, so the first exercise is exercise number 2. Spent about 15 minutes doing it. Drink list unsolved under week 4. And spend about 15 minutes trying to manipulate the DOM. You're going to need a for loop. You're going to need create element, inner HTML, append child. Play with it if you're done early. And if you finish really early, start researching jQuery and how you can change this. I'm going to slack out some of the example code that I skipped over and just did my own of the last exercise. Well, actually, if you go to activity 1 in the GitLab repo, you'll see that code that I effectively just wrote as examples. So you can go ahead and use those as a reference for how you could do this. Okay? So activity 1 in the same week 4 has examples of this. What? Do you want me to go back to my code? Yeah. Oops. Sorry.
So that's what we're just doing it for you.
Yeah.
So, you got all of that, except the radar.
Yeah, I haven't started yet.
So that would be, since the array is trickless, it would be trickless dot length.
I have a question. So,
Mhm.
for target grid in an HTML, we have plus and equals next to each other. What's the meaning?
Plus equals. Good question.
And then
Does anyone know what this plus equals mean?
take what you have already.
Takes what you have already and adds it. Yeah? Okay. Yeah? Yeah, so it takes what you have already and it adds it. Okay? So say you had S equals hello. And you wanted to keep hello but add something else to it. You could do S plus equals world. And then you'll have hello space world in S. So it's like an append as opposed to an overwrite, where an equals is an overwrite. So that's what I'm saying there. I'm saying whatever HTML already exists in the inner HTML, I'm going to add hello world to it instead of overwrite it with hello world. Why do I need the inner HTML there? I don't. I just was showing it.
Well, the instructions for the activity say use it and add it.
Then don't use it. If you can avoid using inner HTML, then do, because it's dangerous because you can blow stuff away. So if you can do it without inner HTML, then do. Find other ways. Make it look better.
So you're on the right track to do it, right? You got that variable already.
Everybody crashes everything. Before we, well,
After trickless dot length and the semicolon.
here you just started to do dot, but there's nothing without the dot.
Oh,
Can you figure it out? Take that thing, just. Right here, you have some invalid syntax in the border.
yeah.
So remember,
Doesn't need some help to it.
the first statement is var I equals, and then you need a semicolon. You need to delimit it with a semicolon.
Okay.
And then you don't need a var anymore. You just say I is less than something. And then you need a semicolon for your last bit. And then you've got I plus plus. Now your for loop's good. Now inside the for loop, you try to create these different elements and add them to it.
Very similar to how it's working here. Do you have a question, Kyle? No. You got it? Nice, man. Solid work. You got it too, man? No?
You could set an attribute, but you don't really need to because that is just change the style or change the position or something.
Okay, I was wondering what exactly was that for.
This isn't like what?
So, it doesn't matter if you're right next to it.
Yeah, so right now, you created RP tag, create element, you did that. You got the text content for it. So the tag text content is going to be Draco's plus I. Then, really the only thing you do after that is, I guess, import it, or I guess append it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Oh wait. Oh wait, no, right there you got the target div created, which is that right there, the drink option. So you can target div append file. Then you put all the p tags you made inside of that target div.
That append child dot what you say?
Look, it's target div, append file, and then instead of drink option, you just put p tag.
Okay.
So, yeah, right now it's basically just gonna show drink list plus I. Drink list 0, drink list 1, drink list all the way to 3. But
It's not giving me the
yeah, so how to get it to actually
I don't like it.
display
I hate word wrap in my
content
editor.
of an array, so like copy and paste.
It's hard for me to just to visualize. Yeah. Yeah.
If you do drink list, right, that's the array that has everything in there. And then if you do drink list 0 like that, 0 is the first one, so that's just going to be copied. So if you do drink list 1, that would be regular stuff. But in the for list, if you do drink list I, then it will show, since I as kind
For
of,
what?
I as like increment.
Yeah, jQuery.com is the place to go because that's where all the API docs are.
So I just put that in braces right there.
Yep, but outside quotes.
Oh, okay.
You got it, Garrett?
Yep.
Nice, man.
You just,
Solid.
the drink list.
All right, so we can actually we're gonna go ahead and go through the example together. We're just gonna solve it together right now,
You almost have
so we can cover all the bases. Fist of 5, how we feel overall on that assignment. Some people are okay. It was pretty tough, though. Okay, yeah, okay. All right. So let's walk through it together. So what we get is our script tag, right? With an array of drinks. And what we need to do is we need to get the div that already exists, and we need to add these drinks somehow into that div. Okay? So our div is called drink options. So the first thing we need to do is get our div with document dot what? Get element by ID, which was drink options, right? So we've got the div. Great, that's all we needed to do there. Okay, so we need to create a for loop that creates the HTML content of all the drinks using JavaScript. So what we're going to need to do is create, I don't know, say a p tag, and we're going to have to put the drink in the p tag and then add that p tag to the div. Okay? So the first thing we need is a for loop. I'll just tab through, make it easy, right? So we have an array called drink list. We can go ahead and put that there. And if we just replace this here with drink list I, we get our drink. We have a drink. Sweet. Now we have our drink text. We got that. We're good. Next thing we need to do, we'll create a tag for our drink, which is going to be, how do we create a tag, Jesse? Document.create tag.
Create element.
Create element, yeah. We're going to make it a P. And the last thing, Kyle, how do we do this? How do we add the P tag to the div? Now, I called it div. Div.child? Oh, pen child, sorry. Our drink tag, right? Now, I forgot one thing, and what is that? What's up, Jesse? What is it?
Text content.
Yep. Drink tag dot text content equals our drink. Right? Is this gonna work? Sure does. Any questions on what we just did? How that works? Yeah, Rolando?
Is it any safer or less safe to just assign the text content directly to the array at the end of it?
So just to do like,
Yeah, I didn't make a drink variable, I just did that.
that is not any less safe than making the drink its own variable. I just like making things variables right now while we're still getting comfortable with everything. But yeah, you could totally do this as well. Just literally pull the drink out of the array, put it directly in the text content. Totally viable. And just to verify, we get the same thing when I refresh. So remember, if we want to get an element by the ID, literally think about that. How do I get the element by ID? I get the element by ID off the document. That's the important part. You've got to remember where. From the document. The document is what? The HTML document, right? So they try to name things in a way that's pretty intuitive. And it is once you're more familiar with this stuff. I know it's not right now, but it will be. And then we're going to have to go ahead and create our for loop. Loop through all of our drinks. Now remember, we have three parts to the for loop. The first part is our initialization. So set variable I equal to 0, semicolon, right? You need the semicolon or it won't work. The next step is our condition, while I is less than the total length of the drink, because the arrays last index is the array's length minus 1, right? So we want I to be equal to the indices. So if we let I go to the exact length of the list, we would actually get an error because the last indice is the length minus 1, not the length of the list. Anyway, we need the condition, second part, semicolon, end it. Third part, how do we continue the loop? I++. Take I, that index, and add 1. Okay, we've got our loop. Inside the loop, inside the curly braces. Now remember, inside a set of curly braces, that's the block level for this for loop. Okay, so this is the for loop's block inside the curly braces. First thing we do, create a new element. We're going to make a p tag in this instance. It doesn't matter if it's a p. It could be a span, could be a div. Doesn't really matter. Do whatever. If you did a span or something inline, they'd be next to each other, right? So if we change this to a span, we'll see a difference in how the HTML renders. It doesn't look so good. That's an inline element. Now, Kyle asked me, why do the elements get stacked on each other when the HTML is rendered through the DOM? Now notice the span is an inline element, right? It's not block level, but it's still stacked, okay, in the HTML. And that's because how you write the HTML has no effect on how it's rendered. It renders the way it wants to render. Now we could change the span elements to have a style attribute to make them block level, and it would fix it. But otherwise, we just get the normal inline span. Let's go ahead and make this back to a P, just so we can see block level again. And you'll notice the block level still renders in rows. Now basically the answer to why does it stack like this in the HTML is because it does. I don't know. They just decided to do that. It's easier to read. So anyway, we created our p tag. We're going to call it drink tag, right? Document.createElement, tell it it's p tag. We got to set the content of that p tag so we can actually see the array element. So we're going to go ahead and set text content. That's a property. It comes up as blue in Visual Studio. Text content comes up as a little blue box equal to drink list I. So we're getting the index I out of that drink list array to get the text at I. So now our drink tag, our p tag, now has some content, right? Last thing we need to do is take that div we grabbed earlier, and we need to add the drink tag add the drink tag to it. We need to append it to the drink tag, append child. And we're done. Any questions on this? Okay. Yeah, Jesse?
Is there a way to actually add an element without appending it as a child? Just as you know, not that you don't have an existing tag there.
Okay, so like there's nothing or something?
Yeah, just a blank sheet and you just want to draw something
You
out.
could use document.write. You could grab the body element and append child to the body, right? So yeah, there are several ways. You could grab the body and replace the inner HTML if you wanted to. You could grab the document and get the root element. I think you can get the root element and replace the inner HTML. So yeah, there's lots of ways to do it, for sure. But at the end of the day, you're effectively just either writing raw HTML or appending a child. Okay, so we're going to take a look at jQuery now and what jQuery does for us. So we have this fun Hello Friends page that's some jQuery. I'll open this up. Alright. jQuery. Yay. Whoops. Let me go ahead and delete this. I don't want you to see that yet. Alright. The first thing you'll notice about this one versus our normal JavaScript is we have a CDN link. Where else did we use the CDN links? Bootstrap, exactly. Very similar, except this one is in a script tag because it is JavaScript. You can't link to a JavaScript file. You have to use a script tag and the source attribute. Now, if I want to find this, how do I get this jQuery CDN link? jQuery.com. Ew. Nice. This is it. This is the guy. So, I want to use jQuery. How do I use it? There is... We can go to download, but we don't want to do that. If you go to download... Oh, CDN. Using jQuery with a CDN. You can click on this link. Oh no, that was CDN. Here you go. Nope. Apparently you can copy these CDNs. Wow, they make this really confusing, don't they? You have to follow these links instead of just being able to do what they do in Bootstrap. Anyway, these right here are effectively CDN links. So you could actually copy these links directly and put them in if you wanted to. Or you can just Google jQuery CDN. And there you go. Here's a bunch of them. Right? Anyway, you take the CDN link, you go ahead and copy that bad boy, and you put it in the script source tag, or the source attribute on the script tag. You can go ahead and put it in your head if you want to, or you can put it at the end of the body. A lot of times you'll see people who do it in the body tag right before their other JavaScript. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, jQuery. Once we have jQuery in, we have something special that happens, okay? We get access to a special function. And this is something that trips up people the first time they see jQuery every single time. To use jQuery, we use a $sign. You'll notice down here I have $, parentheses. Wow. What do we use parentheses for? A function. jQuery is a glorified function. That's it. It's a glorified function. Now what's confusing is we have .html coming off of that function. You're like, okay, well that's weird. It's like chained functions, and yeah, it is. In a way. So, jQuery, the $sign, if you ever see code that says $, and then similar to this with like the CSS selectors or whatever, you got jQuery and you need that CDN link or it won't work. It was just last week, I think, where Jay was looking at some code online, trying to use it, had the $sign, nothing worked, right? Right. This is why. You didn't have the CDN link to jQuery, and it would have worked. So anyway, I could literally do var jQuery function equals $, and I get the same thing out of the jQuery function as if I had used the $sign, because it's just a function, and I can assign it to a variable and all that. Anyway, to show you why this function chaining happens, and I kind of want to explain this before I explain jQuery. Imagine we have S, okay, and S is a string. And I have a function called f, right, which is equal to a function which takes in a string, and it goes ahead and it returns the same string plus world. Okay? So it augments the string in a way. What I can do is this. Alright, so I have new S. Say this is all caps. If I console log new S and I run this, open it up, go to my console, you'll see it says hello world in all caps. Now if I wanted to see new S in lowercase, I could call the toLowercase function off of it, right? Now it's lowercase. Now if I want to be fun and fancy like jQuery examples, and I don't want to do all of that, I can call this function S, and I can just directly call toLowercase. And again, you'll see when I refresh the console log, it's hello world in all lowercase. So does this call right here share some similarities to these right down here? We have a function called $, and we immediately call .html after that. So while this one returns a string, we can see it returns a string, and if I just call func f and I pass in the s, I get a new string, right? But strings have built-in functions that you can use. For instance, .toLowercase. When I call the jQuery function, I get an augmented version of that DOM element, that DOM object we saw earlier with JavaScript. So we get those DOM objects. We can call .style on them. We can call .setAttribute, .append child, .text content. We can call all these functions and properties, right? We all remember those things, right? It's the same thing with jQuery. jQuery is returning a special augmented version of these HTML DOM elements. And if I just do $, empty div, I can actually console log it, and I get something real wacky. Now, I'm not expecting you to go through this and see everything you can do. You don't necessarily need to, and I don't need you to console log this. I just want you to understand the corollary of why jQuery is a function and what it's doing. It's just returning something, and then usually we chain the function calls because all of the function calls in jQuery return a new augmented DOM object that you can then call another function on. So you'll see a lot of people do things like .html, .add class, .remove class, .adder, right? And you can call these in a row because every single one returns the same jQuery object. Anyway, that's an aside. I just want you to be aware of this because we're going to see it a lot with jQuery. All right. So jQuery, like I said, it's this function, this $. Instead of having to do the document.getElementById in jQuery, if we want to get an element, we simply use the CSS selector in strings to grab something. So for instance, we want to get it by its ID, you use the #. If I want to get it by class, how do you think we do that? Period? Oops. Exactly. However, there's a caveat here. If you have multiple objects with that same class, you're hitting them all. But in this case, we only have one, so it works. Okay? It works like CSS. If they share the same properties, we're going to get all of them. Anyway, since IDs are supposed to be unique, we'll go ahead and use that still. But just note that this right here is your CSS selector. Literally, it is exactly the same as CSS selectors. I'm pretty sure you can use almost all of them and grab the elements that the CSS would grab. So as long as you know your CSS selectors, you know your jQuery selectors. Boom. $ function takes a CSS selector. That's it. That's how you get the one you want. What it returns is a special DOM object that has special properties. In this case, it has a function called .html. We can call this HTML function and literally inject whatever HTML we want. Just like we were doing with the inner HTML. Is it safer? No, not really. It's still just as dangerous to change the HTML like this. But you can do it. Then, if I want to go ahead and add something, I can go ahead and append. Right? So jQuery exposes these functions. Now, we did a couple other things. We changed some attributes. We created objects. How can we do that in jQuery? It's a great question. Thanks for asking. All right. So I want to go ahead and this empty div. I don't care about this code. This code, okay, raw HTML augmentation is brutal. We don't want to do it. You can make mistakes, a lot of typing. It's ugly, right? So we call this our div. We'll call it our target div, just like we did in our raw JavaScript. And we'll call this p tag, just like we did. Okay, kind of lied, but I kind of didn't. So I said if you give it a jQuery or a CSS selector, you'll grab all the elements that are alike, right? And that's true. However, if you put an element in the angle brackets here inside of this function, it's creating a new one. Now we have a new one. It doesn't exist anywhere. I can go ahead and take my target div. I can call a sweet append function. And if I refresh this, I have our little div with a p tag, an empty p tag. So this is the append child, right? This is right here, this syntax is the create element. And this syntax is the dot append child. This syntax is the get element by ID. Right? Get element by ID. Right? Document dot create element. Oops. And this one is target div dot append child. Effectively the same thing, right? Alright, we want to change the text content. There's a text function. Hell world. Even better. Some of us may feel that way right now. Hello world. So, one thing to note about jQuery is most things are in function form, as opposed to the property form. Makes it more consistent, right? Everything's you don't gotta worry about, is this a function, is it a property? Everything's just a function. Just use it that way, okay? So how do I change an attribute? I've got this text, hello world, that's coming into the p tag. There's another function, attr, attribute. So, what is this equivalent to? This is going to be ptag.text content equals whatever. And this is going to be equal to ptag.set attribute. These are the functional equivalents in jQuery. You'll notice that this example may not be a whole lot less code, but it's more consistent. And as we get to more and more stuff, it will be less code. Now, jQuery there's a term called idiomatic. Has anyone know what idiomatic means? It's like best practice or the way things are done, right? Idiomatic jQuery is most likely going to look more like this. Like I said, there's function chaining. Instead of getting the target div up front, this is like writing document.get element by ID, empty div dot append child, right? It's a mouthful. But with jQuery, it's really not that much work, right? Because you just have the $sign, CSS selector, dot do whatever. But it's functionally exactly the same as if I got the target div and then set it in a variable and used it later. Just like when you do arrays and you do array at index I, you could just set it to a variable or use it really quick instead of, you know, setting it to a variable if you don't want to, right? It's the same thing just with functions now instead of arrays. Any questions on this stuff? On this cool jQuery stuff? It's different, and we'll go ahead and do an exercise, but first you guys can take a 15-minute break or so. Be back around 7:50-ish, and we'll do some jQuery. What's up?
Do you have any questions? And your question is, I don't know any. Like, I don't even know where to ask. Like, if you're talking about a little messy,
Someday I
somewhere,
just
to protect it.
this work there, it's
Like,
taken like 2 weeks. So
long term,
there's just
Mhm.
some older Chinese.
Yeah.
so when you're talking about, or even when I try to read it,
Yeah.
Saturday
I just
after class.
Okay.
and it's hard to
I did a little bit more on my
15.
homework. I tried to do that responsiveness this morning.
because I'm just seeing
Barely
words,
got to work at all.
Okay.
and
Turned it in kind of half complete.
so like when you're doing this, because I still don't have a good grasp of the ground.
Asking, do you have any questions doesn't really help, does it?
Well, like,
Okay.
my question would be, can you start back on Monday? But
Okay. How can I help that?
I don't know, like, I don't even know where to start, like, so that's why I don't know how to.
I had a feeling that's kind of the way it was, because when I'm like, does anyone have any questions, and no one does, I'm like, that's a lie. I know people don't totally grasp it, right? There's no way.
Like, I don't even know what question to ask.
Okay.
You don't know enough to ask.
Yeah, you're not sure what to ask. I mean, I guess if you can spout anything would be helpful. Just anything. It's I don't know where to begin. Like, what the hell are we even looking at? It's fine because I can reiterate some stuff maybe, and maybe I can try to think about it differently for a moment.
Well, but like I said, I feel like literally the stuff that I needed for you is last week's stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want
People
to
have a lot of trouble with functions on Saturday.
Yeah. Functions are a big switch. Okay.
Like they don't understand the logic behind what you're doing to the function.
Okay.
The whole call process.
So it's tough because in class, I can only sacrifice so much time, right? So I can only readdress those things for so long before we have to move on.
Well, that's why I don't want to bother you with, hey, dude, we started Monday. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I feel you. It's tough. Okay. That's good feedback, though, because that at least make me think of how I can try to restructure these to help a little. Like, I'm trying to, in the last example, and even in this one when I went over functions, although it may have been too fast, I try to cover old concepts, so maybe I could try integrating them more. Hey, if we have an if statement, this is how it works, I don't know.
Well, that's like why I do this, because like, I need to sometimes someone about something else, on the way,
Yeah.
where I can sort of get a little traction instead of just sitting there and people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's Tuesday. A little bit of feedback somewhere once in a while.
One thing you might try, if it's a Tuesday or Thursday, and the other class is in session, hit up those TAs. Because they'll be here and they have to work. So they might be able to help you those days. I know that's not a perfect answer, but I'm just saying.
Like on Slack or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah. You can Slack us. Yeah, don't be afraid to Slack us. One thing this class has done, this whole cohort has done that's interesting is you guys almost never use Slack. Like to talk to us or anything, right? Like it's there as a communication tool. So use it. Feel free to post in our channel. Monday, Wednesday channel is open. Post whatever you want, whatever questions, and if we see it, we'll get to it. We'll try to answer.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe another classmate will.
people can help you too. 'Cause, like I'm awake all night.
Yeah.
Like every night, so I check my Slack like at 10 p.m.
Yeah, you're not the only one with this problem. So I guarantee you there's other students that are on at the same time.
I feel
Like,
better when I come in here and other people are like,
yeah. I've already had the conversation with a couple people like, I feel like I'm so behind. I'm like, you're not.
well, that's what scares me, right? When we start doing this, now I'm being
You understand the logic behind it, and that's what matters.
I think it's going to be pretty regular for everyone to be like a week behind on the class in terms of their total understanding of things. Not that that helps much, but but that's going to be regular for most people, I think, because we're going fast. Like, we're not going slow by any means, obviously, right? So hopefully Jason gets back to you soon. Use Slack more. You know, try to communicate with us more so we can try to help you out in our spare time. And you use your other students too, because even just talking to one of them about the same problem, they may not know, but you guys may figure it out together. That's all I can really recommend. Use us as a resource as much as you can, and we'll help you as much as we can to try to keep up. Because I get it, it's fast, but I can only do so much about the content, right? So, yeah. Yeah. I get it. No, that's a good feedback. Right.
The syntax is kind of like different at the same time.
I feel you. It's good. It's valuable feedback. It's a hard to answer, right? So it's like, yeah. But I'm gonna think about it, and I'm gonna see what we can do, because I really don't want anyone to struggle through this course. Like, I've seen the cohorts go through a few times now, and like I kind of know what to expect throughout the cohort. And now that I'm actually an instructor and I'm in charge of the class, I don't want my class to be in those scenarios, right? I don't want to be in the same boat where We get to week 20, there's people like, I fucking don't even know jQuery. You know, it's like, come on. You know, that I feel like that reflects on me more than the students, which isn't always the case. So I want to try to nip that in the bud as soon as I can. I just don't know everything I can do yet.
Right, exactly. Depends on what you
Yeah.
So you do like the money sign p tag, it creates the p tag element pretty much. So with jQuery, how would you do like say document dot add event like money sign?
Like it was funny.
You would call it a
I
button.
couldn't get my.
So money sign.
So I was looking at jQuery example, and we had extra time during the recent forum.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Something that it's like
That's all it is. But I would sit there
the
for.
dollar sign follows
Yeah.
jQuery and then
No. That happens. That happens all the time to everyone of every level. Yeah, that's where I think it's good that we should communicate more as a class on the Slack channel and be more vocal with each other, because we all have this problem. And everyone's just kind of like, shit, I got this problem. What do I do? You know, it's like, well, we all have it. Let's get through it together.
at least the document.
Just ask Heather. Well, I will not be on considering But you ask a question on Slack, and like that, I know the answer out. I'll send something over.
And then when he sends a too complicated answer, just tell him to dump it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dollar.
And that's fine, too. I mean, trying to break these down to the simplest form is the best thing we can do. But it's hard.
It helps me too, you know that? I'm a martial arts instructor, and I've always learned from my teaching. You never know something until you can actually break it down and teach it to somebody else.
Yeah. Let me tell you, teaching is a great way to learn.
Coding to whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, once I started teaching, I learned so much more teaching than actually participating in the class.
Yeah, when I start to learn something new, I try to go teach it to someone. What happens is I end up teaching my wife, and she hates it. She's like, I have no idea what you just said to me. I don't care about it. Sounds boring.
My wife does a lot of the same stuff I do.
That's good. Yeah.
Sometimes she has to back me, like when we were doing this scratch stuff for the breathing, she had to slap me upside the head going,
So you're literally
you're going way too far. Your left field
And
is
then if you're trying to call a specific
what do you mean? How do I write a book?
Yeah.
No. Point, drag, click.
Yeah.
No, I can't. Yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Forget before pull. Like,
Uh-huh.
so, 'cause, like, obviously, if I pull right now, it's gonna blow up. So what's the step before
It's
this?
git stash,
Stash. Got it.
and then it's dash
Got it.
include dash untracked.
Include untracked.
Yep. Or you can do git add and then git stash,
Yeah, and the command line.
which is effectively the same thing.
Okay, got it. Because it just blows up.
Yep. Yeah. So that saves your changes. You can do the pull, and then you can do git stash pop, and your stuff's back.
Right, that's what the bonus one is. I did it with a for loop again to see how it would work, which is essentially the same thing with the shorter syntax with for loop, right? But
Carson, is it better if you use double quotes or single quotes in the,
It's preference as long as you're consistent.
okay. The only way it would make a difference is if for some reason your tag had some sort of apostrophe or something, which you would use anyway, but.
Yeah, that's when it makes a difference. In JavaScript, obviously that happens, right? But in HTML, just be consistent.
Where you are, it's right up the street to the right. That's what it is. But anyway, from there, you have some target dog, you gotta go down to down to mile 5. And then maybe 2 miles.
Yeah, that's far.
Yes, I get that. And then my wife works on this thing, and we really figured it out. She's got 2 minutes. I got the company vehicle, so, I'll get back in it.
just grabbing, it says when you click the button, this function that says for each item in the list, alert. So like their HTML has a list. They say back here.
Where you're country club,
Yeah, it alerts for each item.
literally, so I know all
People constantly walking there.
What?
People constantly walking there.
Oh, like outside of the.
No, like on the wall.
Okay. What about it?
I was on it.
Oh, so people don't?
No, like so it's easier for the seat from there.
Oh, I see. You want me to turn down the lights a little bit? See if I can turn those down and loud? Try.
If you had a list of files, would you construct them on the phone on the fly as you're running, or would you put them in an array?
Depends on what you're doing. I mean, you have to know what the file names are to some extent, right? But if you're like, if they're in file 1, 2, and 3 or whatever, then great, use an array with an index, use an index and attach it to the file name. But if you have like distinct file names, yeah, put them in an array.
Put something in the array and then just put a whole file name.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to construct it all.
Yeah,
trying
so
to construct the
you're
string.
probably talking about images, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have all the images in an array and be like the hangman steps or whatever, and then you could just show the hangman steps.
And then just pull each one of those out as you go through.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can just increment that step. So it starts at 0, there's nothing. It starts at 1, it's the head.
Which is exactly what it did.
Yeah, that's how I do
Actually, it actually draws from the scaffold first.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's how I do it. Nice.
So I just put it in. I got 12 of them. So put all 12 of them just in the array. Reverse pick it, basically.
Yeah, you could do that.
Start at 12.
Yeah, go backwards to 0 and then you're dead. Whatever, yeah.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, if this is probably the best way to do it, just so that people know what your variables are, because you don't always want to include this, right? So this is probably the correct way. That's optimal. Right. Right. This should be doing.
No, I ended up not going.
How's the weather? It wasn't bad. Oh yeah. It was cool, warm.
Did you stash it before you pulled, or? Well, I'll have to look. Probably. But I'll have to look. We'll look at the end of class. See if we can't fix it. Okay. Okay. Did you do git stash? Or did you? We'll look at the end of class. We'll see if we can figure it out.
How much weight does the youth business have on the last decision?
For the responsive one, a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the general way to make it responsive, right? So,
I just spent so much time, like, I was trying to work my own code with it, and, like, it wasn't responding very well to it, so I read all the solutions going to it to see if it would respond to it, and I kind of just ran out of time.
I mean, the important thing is if you turn something in,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
And I sort of pseudocoded it, but like I said, my brain was fried. I just ran out of time.
What I would do is if you still are
This week it was so much better because I had a lot more free time.
I would say if you really want to hammer those in, meet with TAs or myself before or after class, might go to Alright, let's go ahead and do a jQuery activity. Because everyone's ready and excited for that. We're going to do this activity together. So, we'll walk through it together. I don't feel like everyone's like pumped for jQuery right now. So, we'll do the first one together, kind of get you a little bit more familiar with it. So, I selected a link to this cdnjs.com on the Slack channel. Open it up, because first things first, we're going to need the jQuery CDN. So, this is activity number 4 in the jQuery week activities. We're going to do it together, so everyone should have it open. We're all doing this at the same time. You're not just watching me. We're all doing it. Okay, so first things first, we need to open this bad boy. There's a list of CDNs, core, jQuery, jQuery min. You either want the one that ends in jQuery.js or jQuery.min.js. Those are your two options. Now, does anyone remember what the .min means? We talked about that with Bootstrap.
Minified?
Minified, yeah, it's minified, so there's less space. Sometimes some of the code is, the names of stuff are changed to be smaller. You basically can't read it. But that doesn't matter. We don't need to look at the jQuery source right now. If you want to look at it, take the one that's just jQuery.js. So, for instance, if I just highlight it, and I just go ahead and open it, this is literally the jQuery source code. Right here in my browser, and it's big. Ooh, it's not small. But this is, if you want to learn what jQuery does and really how it works, here's how you do it. Anyway, jQuery min, it's probably the one we want. It's just easier to get, it's smaller. Now if I look at this one, good luck. Have fun. Anyway, we need the CDN link, okay? That's the important thing. Alrighty. So, Nora, where are we putting the CDN link? In the head tag and what? In the script tag? What's the attribute? We're going to copy paste it, but what's the name of the attribute that we're using? Source. We need to take that CDN link. We need to store it in the source, right? Now remember, script tags are not self-closing, so you're going to have the closing script tag, but it's fine, it should auto-generate in VS Code for you. Now we have jQuery. If we want to verify that we have jQuery, console log $, and see what happens. You get this crazy thing. Wow, that thing's huge. That's all of jQuery. It's been console logged. Awesome. We got it. If we didn't have jQuery, what do we get? Just test it out. I don't know. Uh-oh, $'s not defined. Easy to tell if you imported that jQuery properly, okay? So you can just console log $, first thing in your script tag. If you get this crazy ass function signature and you don't get an error, you're good. jQuery. You ain't gonna read it. That's okay. Anyway, we've got jQuery. So what do we got to do? So this is that drink list again. Okay? We have our drink options. we're going to go ahead, and what we're going to need to do is get the drink options, create a P tag for every single one of these drinks in the drink list, and append them to the drink options. So, let's see. Jake, how do I get the drink options div?
You are going to
So how about first thing? What are we going to store it in? We're going to store it in a variable, right? Variable. Let's call it drink options div. It's a long name. And then what does jQuery have? What function do we use? Excuse me. Sorry. Do we need that with jQuery? What about the cool $ sign we get? We use that cool $ because it's jQuery. It's not the p tag. No. We have to get it by ID. So how would we select drink options by ID in CSS? The hashtag.
Oh, right.
Our cool friend, the Octothorpe. That guy. The Octothorpe. Yeah, that's a cool dude. Is that all we need to do, Jake?
It should be to reference the drink option.
It is, correct. Nice. Okay. We need to make a for loop Peyton. What do we do?
For parentheses, bar I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than drink list not limit, semicolon, I plus plus.
Solid. What else?
Curly bracket.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. We need to create a p tag Justin. So first things first, we need to store it in a variable, right? So let's call that variable p tag. jQuery gives us a nice function. What is that function? It's the $, right? It's a jQuery $sign function. When we're creating a tag, we go ahead and create it like we would in HTML with the angle brackets and everything. Full little p right there. Nice guy. Right? Put our semicolon. Okay. We've got a jQuery built p tag. Heather, how do we change the text? Nope. P tag, we can get the p tag. There's a function called text. And we can set it to what? Heather, this is still on you. We have the drink options array. We need to get a drink out. Or the drink list array, I'm sorry. What about drink list? Bracket I. Is that the array syntax? We use the brackets, we use I as the index we want to get out. We're going to pass it into that text function. Okay? Now, we have a p tag. The p tag has text from that array. We have a drink options div. And we want to append to that div our p tag. Just like append child, just drop the child. Jesse?
What's the difference between
Append
append and append 2?
and append 2? I think append 2 will add it after, but I don't know. I'd have to look at the jQuery specification. It's a good question. We'll find out in a moment. We'll put it in. So anyway, we refresh this code. Voila. We've got it with jQuery now. So, important things to note. $sign is always our starting point in jQuery. $sign. When I ask you, we're going to do something in jQuery, your answer should always first be $sign. Just shout out $sign. You don't got to know what it means, but that's the starting point. So there you go. Yeah, $sign parentheses, even better, right?
Noted.
So that's all we need to start with. You give me that, we're good. We can work from there. The second thing is if you want to get something, use your CSS selectors. You know the CSS selectors? # for ID, dot for class, just a P for all the P tags, right? That's how you get them, okay? If you got errors, check your syntax. Make sure you read every line there thoroughly, because you might have a syntax problem. Or your CDN link might be bad. So, we've got our cool for loop, because we're going to use that. There's no sense in going through this list 8 times or whatever. Normal for syntax, okay? We've got our I equals 0, I is less than the list.length, I++, incrementing it. And then we need to create a new p tag. We have a variable, because we put everything in variables. We pick our crazy $ parentheses, because that's where we start. And then in this case, we're using the angle brackets. This says we need a new tag. We're not grabbing a tag. We're creating a tag. Okay? So it creates a tag. We store it in our variable. Everything in jQuery uses a function, so we're not setting the text content anymore. We have a text function that we'll use, and we'll just pass in the drink list text at that index that our for loop is currently addressing, in this case 0 for the first one, directly into the text of the p tag, and then we'll just append the p tag to our div. So how do we make this more idiomatic, as I said earlier? Well, the cheap jQuery way would be to do that. Because remember, functions return something, and you can immediately just do dot whatever off of that object coming back from jQuery, which is an augmented DOM object. So that DOM that we know and love is just some crazy jQuery thing. Now, Jesse had a question of what does append to do? And the answer I have is I don't know. Something different, because it didn't quite work, did it? So why don't we look really quick, since we're working with jQuery. Why don't we just go to jQuery.com. And could be. So we can go ahead and go to the API documentation. We can go to manipulation. We'll probably just search. I'm going to go ahead and search for append to. Insert every element in the set of match elements to the end of the target.
So it's when we have multiple classes and IDs.
Yep, it looks like it. Put a p test inside of every class inner. So basically, you can say everything that follows some format, we can append the element to it. So append to would actually flip. We do p tag append to drink options. So why don't we try that? I'm just going to go ahead and fix this code. P tag dot append to drink options. Will that work the same? Guess we'll find out. Bam. Beautiful. So it's flipped verbiage, right? So the verbiage is supposed to be like if you were reading it. So I'm going to take my p tag, I'm going to append it to my drink options. Whereas the other one is I have my drink options and I'm going to append my p tag. Right? I guess that's how they view it. It's a semantic thing. Yeah, Rolando?
Why doesn't it work if you put the p tag in the $, like get rid of variables, but where you have p tag dot with all of it? I messed up on that. I was trying to like minimize it like you did with the link options
Okay.
by getting rid of the variable and just calling it directly the p tag portion. Yeah.
Okay. How could you do that? Okay, that's a good question. How could we do that? How can we make more idiomatic? Text dot append to. Will this still work? Sure does. Because jQuery allows you to chain those calls because they always return that augmented DOM object, right? jQuery. It's magic. Does a lot of stuff for us. which is pretty cool. Okay, so what? It's a little different the way I did it. Okay. Let's look at how they did it. So here's one way. They use divs. Okay, so here's another way you can do it. So they grab the drink options div, which they didn't even need to do, right? They could make it idiomatic jQuery and just do it in this list. And they just did append, and they directly appended raw HTML in there. Now the other thing they did is this .for loop function. Interesting. So this is a more sophisticated way to do it, I suppose is the way to put it. So all arrays we have a .for each function on them that takes in another function and allows you to act on whatever's going on in that array. So what this does is this .for each function is actually going to loop through every single one of these. And that's what this drink variable references. So the first time it goes through, we'll have coffee $5. The second time, we'll have espresso $7. Third time, we'll have cappuccino $6. And allows you to act on them as if they were a function. So this is a bit of a more sophisticated way to do it than the way we did it.
Does that make the computer kind of work harder?
Actually, yes. It does. That's great intuition. Why? Do you know why? Well, we were looping through them before, but what's different with this one?
We're looking through them one at a time.
We're looping through them one at a time, but the difference in this one is we have 9 function calls, and we're looping through them, as opposed to just looping through them. So before, with the for loop, that's the most efficient way you could do it, right? It's a raw loop. It loops through 9 times or whatever, gets the job done. But in this case, we're looping through it still, under the hood, behind the scenes, right? But we're also calling a function for each one. So if I were to write this code, it's going on right here. I want to write this myself, right? I want to see what this is. How do I do that? And I'll show you. Maybe it gives you a better understanding of how this works, okay? Maybe it won't. We'll see. I'm going to call this for loop, okay? It's going to have one parameter function. And we have to change it a little bit because it's, well, no, we won't do that. Yeah, I'm going to change it a little bit. It's not going to be exactly like this, but we have this for loop function, okay? And we have another parameter called array. It's going to work similar to this one, but not quite the same. And what we're going to do is write a for loop in here. Just like we do normal for loops. And we have this function that we're going to call. And we're going to call this function with array I every single time. So to use this, I could do for loop drink list or if I wanted to make an exact replica, why don't I go through these again? Now, let me go ahead and open the containing folder. So Stephanie's slacking this stuff out so you can see these examples. This is a bonus version that's more sophisticated. The other one doesn't. So the other one uses a for loop, like we did with divs. This one uses this crazy for loop function that we had a little extra time, so I figured I'll explain it. Okay, so this is a lot, probably, but it highlights a couple of really important concepts. One, you can use functions as parameters in JavaScript. You can return functions from functions in JavaScript, which makes it an extremely powerful language that it can do that. Because that means you can build functions in functions and return them. It's crazy. Super hard to wrap your head around. We'll get to it later. But anyway, what we see here is a cool syntax for basically making it really clean, right? We don't see this for loop anymore. So if there's anything else going on in this loop, we don't care. All I care about is that the elements of my array are being iterated through, right? That I can get to all of them. And I can. And you'll see we're printing out the list twice now because my for loop function is doing what this drinklist.forEach does. Feel free whenever we use a for loop on an array to use the .forEach. As long as it's got an element in it, it'll run this function. We'll be good to go. You'll be able to get to it. Just remember the parameter, the first parameter, is the element you're on in the array. Okay? So, again, pretty sophisticated example. I don't expect you all to totally grasp what's going on here yet because this has to do with higher order functions and closures and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's pretty cool, and we're going to see it a lot in Node when we get to Node. And we'll actually see it a bit in a moment when we talk about click handlers. Because click handlers function the same way. So they have functions that accept functions. Okay. So I know we just covered a lot. Is there anything else for the next couple minutes people want to see again in jQuery? See again in functions? Okay. So we'll move to the next jQuery example then, and just start talking about it. So we're going to talk about click handlers now. jQuery makes handling clicks and buttons and all kinds of fun stuff like that significantly easier. Well, I guess depending on who you ask. But it does. It's got a nice syntax for it. Okay? So, how do we click? I'm just going to use this page because I don't need any of this. We got jQuery. We're good to go. We have our div. I'm just going to change this to my div. It's going to say click me. Okay? Click me. Woo! I want to get rid of this. It's just extra noise at this point. So it says click me. Okay? We want to click it. Cool. With jQuery, again, if we want to grab something, we always have to use our $ syntax, right? We have my div. That's not even close. Oh my god. It is really hard to type while looking to the left. I found that out doing this class. Okay. So traditionally, when we have these click handlers, right? So say we had my div, we did document, get element by ID, my div, okay? We could do my div dot on click equals a function. Right? Does that look familiar to anyone? Kind of like that on keyup. Basically, we take this onClick property on the div, and we can assign it to a function and do something. So if I refresh, I click this bad boy, we get an alert that says, woo. Yeah, we've seen that before. You may not totally understand what's going on, but you can do it that way. jQuery has a different way. So again, we have our selector, and remember a lot of times people just select it and then go ahead and act on it. They're not going to put it in a variable. You have the on function. You tell it what handler, so you don't got to worry about knowing on click, on key up, and like setting all these properties. You can just use this handler. And then we pass in a function. Okay? Just like we saw with that for each in the for loop that we used, okay? And I can alert woo again. Refresh it. Woo again. So jQuery makes accessing a lot of things in the DOM very, very easy. Okay? Click handlers and handlers in general on key up.
That one won't work. I need focus or something. On key up can be done the same way. I can actually pass document. Okay, jeez. Every time I key up, I can see the key I pressed. Let's refresh. Right? And that was the same as doing the document dot on key up some function with the event, so on and so forth, right? The inner code there is exactly the same. So remember those event handlers, jQuery offers a nice way to do those as well. And this syntax you're going to want to get familiar with because we're going to have to use it a lot. Pretty much everything we do with jQuery, we're going to have to use this kind of dot on. Now the important things to remember are you want to select your element. Okay, so selecting our element. We start with the $, parentheses. Boom, that's where we start. Next thing, we need quotes because it's a string. Excuse me. We want to get it by ID. So we do our hashtag, right, our £, because that's what CSS does. Followed by the name of our, the ID of our element. And then right here, dot on, we go ahead and do our parentheses. We tell it what handler we want to affect, in this case, click. And then we give it a cool function. You don't need to use this event thing yet. We'll use it later. We'll talk about it more. It's an event parameter. Then you make a function. Refresh. Click me. Woo, woo, woo. Easy peasy. Well, kind of. You can remember all the syntax. Now, the thing I don't like about jQuery and why we're introducing it so soon is we just are getting familiar with syntax, and now we're adding all this syntactic overhead of trying to remember how to use jQuery, right? So it's a lot. But we want to go ahead and do another exercise where we do the clicking. So, exercise number 6, called sandwich click. Okay? Don't know why they named it that, but they did. Work with partners. I don't care how big the groups are. Try to get these click handlers done together with jQuery. Okay? So go ahead. Do number 6. We're going to spend a good chunk of time working on this together. I want you to work in partners. I don't want to help you with this one. Try to figure out how to use jQuery. Try to figure out how to do click handlers. Don't work alone. And remember the first thing, you need jQuery CDN. Don't forget it or you're going to have no fun. Alright, so it's number 6. I'm going to pull the instructions up here. Here's my example click handler for you. What was that? Yeah, it would be. You can go ahead and try all you want, but everything's like hooked underneath. If we wanted to do that on a like Saturday before our class started, I'd be like, let's give it a shot. But if things go wrong, that's on you guys, not me. You just won't have the chargers unless we replug them all back in. So. Oh, they're also zip tied under there. So.
I think we're just making it so every time you click one of those tags, that it just adds one to.
No. Yeah, alright.
say the first one. So you're gonna first. Okay, one time you're supposed to grab the other. So. Yeah. So I would do one time. I was just gonna add the amount of sandwiches eaten within that alert. So mine kind of looks the same as yours, like because the eaten variable is at 0.
No, I just did it right here. I
Yeah,
did
you
it
throw a variable in there. Oh, but then I guess that makes sense, but it makes sense more to me like this because every time you click it, you want eaten to go up and right. So yeah, you could probably put plus plus down there, but it just makes more sense is that when the function actually, so you click it, add 1 to eaten, and then it alerts you A to PBJ. Then I was gonna put like something like 4 So now I would say alert when I click the peanut butter jelly tag up there, alert and then peanut butter jelly. Yeah, or and then it'll say 1 right there. Right. Yeah, I think it was also putting it in there.
So as a hint,
it just makes more sense.
this code that's right here on the screen right now that I've left here, you're going to be writing code similar to that 3 times. There's more to it. There's variables you need to store how many times you've clicked the buttons. So that adds an extra element, right? But you're going to need this block right here, aside from the selector, 3 times. So get used to it. Get used to that little block.
Yeah, so that's pretty much. I think everything you have right now is like everything we need for one. I pretty much that is copy and paste it 3 times. And maybe? add one to it. But then that would be like plus that string. Yeah, it's just gonna add it. Yeah, to the end of the string. I feel like if you oh, never mind.
Very good. Got it? Check your syntax.
I was like, it's working. Because the thing is, like, my syntax is like really messed up.
Got it?
Yeah, on clear.
How you feeling, Jose? Well, we have two more. The good news is we have two more exercises just like this.
Oh yeah,
So we're gonna get
click
lots.
just needs to be close.
You guys need anything?
Actually,
So now, hey, for those of you that already got the click handlers done, what we want to do is put variables in here to count how many times we've clicked, and we want to alert you've clicked V, B, B, and J so many times. That's the next step. So once you get the click handlers, now add that. There you go. You got more work.
I think it's because you gotta click OK on that box.
I like how you doing, man. You get the click handlers to work?
It's adding it. Oh, good, I'm a pen guy.
I'm not trying to like.
Oh, it's after the money's on. You gotta put you should have to put like this, like quotes around it with a hashtag. But I don't know how that first one is looking.
Right, but it's that pending.
Use the word.
You know, when you call a console.log,
Yeah.
that dollar sign is console.log. I want you to saying console.log. That's the equivalent, right? The dollar sign is like
You gotta
console.log.
put quotes around that.
But there's no console. So I know that's part of the bars is totally different. So it's counting JavaScript as a variable. Okay? But the dollar sign is something over. Yeah,
For the click function. What are these two?
those are basically when you define a function, you need to put the parentheses to define it.
So these can stay blank.
If the stuff packs into this, so in click handlers, we have that event object that's passed in. You know how to type event in
Yeah,
there?
mine is slightly.
So those are the parameters that the
So when I
function
click
accepts.
it, it'll just
So you can type it in.
Yeah, you can type event in there. Yeah, the parentheses basically say it's a function.
I mean, other than that, we have like the same thing.
Cool, doing good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Don't forget to work with these guys right next to you too. They can help you.
I'm trying to get understanding so I can talk to them.
Good. How are you feeling?
Then you have to do plus two. Yeah, because now it will say, they just add multiple pluses, it's kind of just like adding sentences together.
Don't things like that will get you.
And then what's the other one?
Yeah. Okay. Go back. Open up the webpage. Refresh.
Total like,
Flip.
description one,
Okay. Open up your dash here. Okay. That's why I'm putting up. Console. Unstop syntax and you got a syntax. So see that red mark on the side? Track that bad boy down. Try to figure out why it's there. Okay, so there's this document job ready.
Yeah.
Comment it out.
Yeah.
So that,
Do you have anything?
curly brace has no comment. You can comment that? Good man. When they're ready, spawn. You want that there. So go ahead and now refresh.
I might be wrong.
Go ahead and click it, Tyler.
Nice.
Syntax errors will
So, yeah, syntax error.
This should be updated, right?
Justin, Kyle, how you guys doing? Good? Do you need any help with anything?
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah? What's up? You need variables first. Yeah? All right, really quick, since we've got about 5 minutes left, I'm going to give you a hint on the variable part if you haven't gotten there. Variables. Variables got to come first because we need to use it in those click handlers, don't we? So if click's set to 0, we should do that first thing in our script. How do we change how many clicks have happened? Right? Or plus plus. Yep. Plus plus also works. Now, our clicks are being incremented every time I click that button, and I can do whatever I need to do to show that in my alert. So that's the second part. Go ahead and use that to help you add clicks to each button.
So appending to the header, like, so this is how I did first. And how can we write this out where so that we don't have to select this, like, just have the numbers show up next to this one? If I append it, it just keeps going.
Yeah,
Like that whole, unless I put it like here.
Yeah.
And just move like
Yeah.
numbers. I felt like it was just so long. Like, oh yeah, recopy the entire text is already there. Because when you append, it just. Yeah, that's the down part. Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, Jake.
That's fine. Yeah, you don't gotta call the variable clicks, that's just an example.
Are you talking about when you get print these? Well, so first look at the way you're counting the clicks. Right? So you're counting every time they click, no matter what they click on, you're counting it. So what you really want to do is when they click on how about some meat, you want to have a variable for that count. They click on where's the tomato soup, you want another variable to add the clicks on that. And those variables to add the clicks on the last one. So you just basically do that, do what you're doing already, you just do it 2 more times. So rename this like click stuff, or click meat, or something like that. Not dot, no dot. It's click meat, click PBJ, and click, you want 3 different variables. And then you want to increment them from the beginning, you can increment. Depending on what
So
you click.
our variable is just inside.
First one is
I tried to do that, but it didn't really do what I thought it was. I didn't really do anything. I just
plus plus all.
if I created a new key tag, you want to each one,
And then you want to alert that count after you implement it. So you want to do an alert. Like,
Still though, it's pretty cool. Nice work.
how to, they just like you did here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But does that go within each? You don't, it doesn't need to be in quotes because it's a variable. So,
All right, we'll do this for like another minute or so. We can wrap it up, and then we'll just talk about it real quick.
Same thing for the other ones.
I'm tired today, man. Monday sucked. What kind?
It's a Jeep Cherokee.
Nice.
An 88. But did a bunch of work today to kind of get like roadworthy. So today was a long day, but yeah, I got news about that job, and they said, sorry, there's 5 candidates and we didn't choose you. Yeah.
Sorry to hear, man.
It's alright.
Guess back to the grind, huh?
Yeah, back to the drawing board, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we're gonna talk about this one. How did everyone feel about that format? Did we handle that one a little bit better? More collaborative? We kind of all solved the problem eventually, or most of it. Feeling pretty good about it? It's good. So let's take a look at the code. I'm just going to show you the code instead of running it this time, because we covered a lot of it in that little example I had. So, first things first, we've got 3 variables. So, Garrett, when you named them after sandwiches, right on, man. That's exactly what you wanted. We've got 3 variables named after the different sandwiches. You can call them counter. Doesn't really matter. PBJ's eaten. PBJ's doesn't matter. But variables to represent each sandwich. Then we have our on-click handler, right? So we select the # PBJ, right, for that PBJ H tag, H3 tag. We give it the on-click. In there we define a function. We can go ahead and alert whatever we want, and we can increment the counter. So in this case, we alert, a peanut butter jelly time, right? We increment the PBJ counter because we've eaten another peanut butter and jelly, and we say you've eaten however many PBJ sandwiches, right? You've eaten 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And every time you alert, it's going to say that again with a new number. 1, 2, 3. 3 times in a row. Okay? How are people feeling on this? On this exercise? You solved the problem. Oh, well, you moved it to 4. Okay, good. Yeah, mostly pretty good. Mostly pretty good. Okay, getting there. I thought you put your fist up first. I was like, you literally solved it.
Were we supposed to do the alerts with the count?
It doesn't really matter. I think the directions said to do the alerts, but it doesn't matter as long as you got the same thing. What's the difference between an alert or changing the HTML, right? There's not really one.
I mean,
Well, yeah, but you're effectively doing the same thing, right? Cool. So, with that being said, we're going to jump immediately into another exercise that uses effectively the exact same concepts. Okay? We're going to, it's number 7, trigger random. We're going to go ahead and do that one as a group as well. Do it in the same partners or whatever. I'm not going to do it with you, but you'll get another 15 minutes or so to work on it. Similar concept.
competitive wisdom babies.
Oh, we're not doing they're gonna do it?
Yeah, no, do them as partners. You want to do this as partners.
So this random button here.
You got this.
Oh, here's the random button. So this is what we're changing because all the stuff is there. So we're gonna try to get the random number out.
I just like at a link that is a video review of the last activity we did too. So if you want to go back and watch that after class, it's there for you.
So we're gonna make it so when you click random button, it does the idea was basically talking about running by the random button. Does jQuery have its own?
Nope, the random number function will be just like the other one we used the other day. So jQuery has no random number function. It's just for UI DOM stuff with jQuery. Stumped on what? Got it? Nice.
Oh, it's dot on, not on dot. Oh. So random button dot on. And then comma. Parentheses open close, and then curly brackets open close, brackets empty. Yeah, so then we'll put what clicking that button does inside here. So what it's going to do is change the random number ID to random.
Right, you have to have some sort of.
Makes so much more sense. I feel like I'll learn about it as I get through it.
You guys got this one? Getting there? Got that in there?
2 shows a night. Already got your very It doesn't compute, man. It does not compute. Think about that.
Okay. Just like that.
Alright, I'm gonna slack out. I'm gonna slack out some code, and if you haven't figured it out yet, to generate a random number between 1 and 1,000. Okay? You can use this. You need to set it to a variable. This needs to change every time you click the button. And then your HTML needs to change with that click as well, displaying that random variable. Why? What works?
So I found the code for the random number, and it set your random number to, like, you call the floor function, so you know when this is your random function, you multiply by 1,000.
Specify the button itself.
Well, how will you not get 1,000 possible?
Well, I know if you just do math.random times 1,000, it'll do any random number between 0 and 1,000. If you do math.random times 1,000 plus 1, then it'll do any random number between 1 and 1,001.
Right, because we don't want 0.
But it'll get up to 1,001 at that point.
Why? I'm asking why. Because theoretically it should only generate a number between 1 and 1,000, not 1,001. But it gets you out of the 0 hole because 0 times 1,000 is 0 plus 4. No.
Wait, that would work if you do math.random.
Still be 1 through.
So math.floor is going to take the number down 1.
Oh.
So it's going to be between 0 and 999. Then we add 1, which makes it between 1 and 1,000. Yeah. So math.floor is like a round down.
Yeah, I noticed it was a round down because like when you just math.random, all the numbers are mostly 0 dot, like it's a decimal range.
Yeah, some random, between 0 and 1.
Oh, random only generates a number between 0 and 1.
Well, it times it by 1,000. It might not even be, it's up to 1. And the floor rounds it down. I think it'll even round it down to 999 if it's 1,000. So.
Actually, because it probably never hits 1,000, it's like 995, not infinite.
Yeah, I mean, you can put 1.0 times 1,000 inside the math.floor plus 1, see what it does. That'll tell you. What? Did you get it now? Chris? So, you got your click function. You've your syntax enough. You are missing closing parentheses, but you're missing more than that. Backwards.
Oh, it's bracket.
What else? What about this one? Document ready. Document ready is wrapping this. It's the same as non-click. So racist parentheses.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. Look, it's wrapped in. Right?
Alright, so now.
So now generate the random number. I gave you the code to generate the number, set it to a variable, and update some HTML every time you click. Okay? Huh?
So pretty much you're only missing one thing. You got it, so like the button.
Oh, math
Executes the function. But right now the function is setting a random number. Oh wait, I should have added that before that random number.
What was that?
So that was the math function.
It's within the click handler. Because it needs to change every time you click.
A random number that you need a separate. Well, I'm basically just setting a variable random equals whatever that is. And I just name it
When I go to the house, this is a really complex system, and I feel like they need to have like, this is actually, this is like from the solution. I just sort of, I'm wondering if the only other thing is like open the solution in the browser so they can see it on the TV. But I don't want them to see the solution. I just want to. Do you have it in your command line? Do you have like? Because I just pulled it from the command line. So basically, I just opened it. The random variable right above.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're,
I can open it that way.
okay.
So they can see this.
Yeah. So I can just go through the solution. Yes, the browser solution, so they can visualize what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
totally.
better.
Okay, I'll do that before you come up.
Okay.
Get all set up for it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this one. Yeah. So there's one thing I want to talk about that I didn't talk about on the last example that we've been getting in our code, and that's this document.ready function. It's not super important what it does right now. Don't really worry about it. Having it is a good thing, but it's been tripping a lot of people up because they seem to forget, which is expected, that the document.ready needs to end in a parenthesis and curly braces, right? Because it's calling another function, .ready, that has a function in it. So you need the functions, the inner functions, closing curly brace, right? And you need the closing parenthesis for the ready function. You need both of those things for any of your internal code that's inside of it to work, or you're going to get syntax errors. Now remember, if you think you wrote the code right, open it up in the browser, go to the command, the developer tools, and see what it says. If the console is giving you a bunch of red signs, syntax is probably bad. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to change, we have this random button, and when we change it, when we click it, we need to change the random number, okay? So we can do our $, random button, on click, right? Because we need to do it on click. Remember, we need our opening and closing curly brace for the function. Then we need our closing parenthesis for the on function. Put a semicolon after it. Boom. Okay. Let's generate a random number. So I gave you that code. So what it does, math.random returns a number between 0 and 1 exclusive of 1. So it'll never actually return 1. It's 9.9999999, okay? Is the biggest number it can return. So when you do math.random times 1,000, you'll get somewhere between 0 and 9999.99999, some crazy number, right? So math.floor rounds it down to the nearest number. So if it's 0.1, it's going to round it down to 0. If it's 9999.99, it's going to round it down to 9999 or whatever, or 999 or whatever, right? Then we add 1. That makes it between 1 and 1,000. That's how that works. Anyway, so we've got our random number. We've got our button click. We know what's going on, okay? So we want to go ahead and get the random number element. And we could just go ahead and change the HTML to the new number is, and type in our random number. Alright? About 4 lines of code. Deceivingly simple. Deceptively simple. Right? Okay? How are we feeling? Right now at this point. Getting there? Getting there, get a little bit better, I'm seeing better numbers than last time, I feel like. Well, some people didn't raise their hand, so I don't know what that means.
Okay. This isn't working right here? Then you probably have a syntax error. You didn't think what'd you do? Ah, okay.
You put random that was probably random number on the RPS.
Uh-huh.
I haven't changed that because it was in that was part
Uh-huh.
of
Okay. We have one more. We're going to do one more activity that's going to take the rest of the... let me just look, make sure this is set up properly, though. Alright, so this code, this random number generator code, you're going to need it for this next assignment. We'll slack out the solve. If you guys could slack out the solution to this for everyone, because they're going to need to start with it. And I'll show you what we're about to do. We have this blue button, and we generate a lottery number. And every time we generate one, we're adding it to a list. Oof, this one's going to be rough. In the real lottery? Nice. Yeah, get a pool? Nice. I like that, yeah. It's a good idea. Alright. So, we're going to use the solution to the last thing we just did, that random number generator. It's kind of a starting point, okay? What's going to happen is the lottery number should pick a random 9-digit number that is always 9 digits. And I'm going to give you a hint on this one. You can go ahead and try to generate a huge number, or you can generate 9 different numbers and add them together. Add them together, what? As numbers or what, right? Think about that too. Because if you add 9 numbers together, you're probably not going to get that. So 9 single-digit numbers can be added together somehow in JavaScript to turn into 9-digit numbers. Anyway, it's a trick. Go ahead and display that number in the random number div, but every time you display these numbers, append them to a list. Keep going down. Okay? If you want all the crazy styling, I'll select that out right now too. Yeah, 1 second. No, you can look at it. So I'm slacking out a snippet that has the same styles if you wanted to use it, because the last one doesn't quite. Lotto.html. And here is the code from the last activity. Yep. Not if you use the example I just sent you. That I put on Slack, you don't necessarily, but... Oh, the list? Yeah, you're adding actual HTML every time, right? So, and also remember too that when we added new lottery numbers, they were being added to the top of the list. So append adds stuff to a bottom of the list, right? If you keep appending a child, it's going to append up. You're going to have to search for the opposite of append. It's not append up. I'll give you a hint. So there's a lot of things going on here. 1, you need to be able to do the opposite of append, put something at the beginning of a list. 2, you need to figure out how to generate a 9-digit number. You got to use a random function. My hint to use, generate 9 random single digits and try to make a 9-digit number with them. and show them in that list every time we click the button. Working partners. We're doing this for the rest of class, so some stuff. We'll come start giving some hints in a few minutes.
Is 0 allowed?
Yeah, you can do 0 to 9. Yeah, why not?
Right.
Yeah, you can't do 10.
I don't know how to, my laptop's restarting to remember, but I have an idea of how to get 9 random numbers generated. Return to I times 3. That's my idea is kind of what you said, it's just, like generate a random really big number, or generate 9 small numbers, and just add them together.
I'm on the phone, dude. I'll think about it.
Well, 9 would be 9
Would be less than 10.
Yeah, 9 digits long. Yeah, 999 million. You could technically do it that way. I feel like. You do math.random. I don't know. It gets kind of confusing when you do a random number in between two numbers, but yeah, I think it'd be easier to just generate 9 small numbers and then just add them together into one large number. So if you got, right now you got math.random basically times 1000 plus 1. So that would be a random number between 0 and 1000, I guess. So if you did math.random times 10 plus 1, I think it could be a random number between 1 and, I mean between 0 and 10. But is there zeros in there too, do you think? Or it needs to have zeros. 10. There's a 10 in there. So just do math.random times 9. And then get rid of that plus 1. Now, yeah, I had a 0 in there. And then it should go up. So that would be the first one. So that's 1.
Why do we generate it?
No, it's only the visible.
I think you make a 4 loop, create a random number 9 times, and then just add it to itself every time. across the screen showing activity 8.
Yeah. Not activity 8. I've got all that homework. Yep, syntax errors will get you, man. I've got all the homework examples open in Chrome, so, and I'll just open the instructions, so when I'm done, I'll just, here's the instructions, here are the different versions, and you can go next.
Oh, well, what do you mean?
So there's 3 versions.
Okay.
They can do the Crystal one or the Star Wars one.
Yeah, well, I was only going to go over the Crystal one, honestly. Because what I was going
That's
to do
fine.
is just tell them, like, in the instructions it says the Star Wars one is really hard, and you should only do it if you're really comfortable with it. So I figured go more in depth with the Crystal Collector. And then I was going to just do the recommended solution, because this one, it's a little bit different, but I think that kind of, that's something like they'll probably produce. But this is something like what they want to produce.
Okay.
Right? That's what I was thinking. Like this
Okay.
one.
Well, they'll be open, but
Okay.
it's open either way.
Cool. Awesome.
That math random times 9 only is I mean,
What was that? Yeah. Pretty much right at the end. Do a few weeks of React.
Is it a final project kind of thing?
Yep. Yeah, your final project needs to be in React.
That's going to give you always a number 0 to 9, but I can figure out how to add 9 of those together. Like what we're
So if you have 9 single-digit numbers, there's no way in hell you can generate a number this long, right? But how else can you add them in JavaScript so that you're not literally adding the numbers, you're adding them together to form one gigantic thing? You don't need to do that. You can do the number plus empty quotes plus the other numbers. And it turns into a string. Or, since it starts as a string, you could just start the variables in a set of empty quotes. Right? Can start as that. Yeah.
Did you make that shortcut?
No. I just typed 4 and then I hit tab, man.
It's already built in. Alright, cool.
Do you want to generate 9 numbers by hand? What about something like this? Lotto num math.floor math.random. Would that work? Maybe. Can you? Yeah, I mean, if you can, then great, do that. But you just need to get somewhere between 0 and 9, right? I think this needs to be 10. Nope. I like it. Turn it into a lotto function. Heather is not about that solution.
I'm parked way far back on the right of that parking lot out there, nowhere near the parking lot.
I see. Just in case anyone wants to come shank you after class.
I'm parked over there.
Yeah.
Not over there.
We're just talking that smart.
Yeah, I get that. I have to use it. You don't want this smaller than what.
You don't want those.
What's our name? What did you start on?
No, but brain's done. This is not. I just need to watch questions.
Well, I am just quality on the recording.
For the next thing, yeah, we're not like in a row.
No.
We're trying to make like an array that has 0 through 9, and then the random variable just picks the random, I guess, the random string in the array, which is just a number. But now I'm trying to get it to add on to itself like 9 times. Oh, really? Oh.
I have that type too.
I was like all broken.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I have right now.
I was trying to figure out
You're generating a number. Once that line number is generated, you need that right now.
I mean, right here. Yeah, right here you're moving the data.
On the TVs right now is the solution. So we have our button click. That code I posted with the lotto number. This one's slightly different because it only does 1 through 9. It doesn't do 0 through 9. So whatever. Semantics, right? Takes the random number. Does the same thing I was doing, just in more words, right? Takes the lotto number and adds the random number to the lotto number. That turns it into a string from a number. It's taken care of for you. And then you just do a prepend instead of append. And you put the lotto number in. You can make it bold, or you can do a new line break, right? You can do the HR, and then put in the lotto number, and that, you know, separates it, makes it look real nice. Prepend is the opposite of append. Prepend puts it at the top, append puts it at the bottom. You're going to want to remember that for programming forever in the future. HR is like a line. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's just like a little line. And break is the space, right?
So, does everyone get the subtlety of why that's coming back as a string? That makes sense?
Yeah, this part. Does it make sense why this is a string and not a number? Because right here, this random is a number, right? It's coming in as 1 through 9. What this is doing, lotto number, we're setting it explicitly to an empty string. First things first, right? And what happens is when you add a number in JavaScript to a string, it turns it into its string equivalent. So if you have 1 and you add it to empty string, it makes it 1 as a string. And because we have lotto number at that point as a sequence of strings, and we're adding another number, we're just adding that number to the front of the existing lotto number string. So basically, it builds a string of numbers. And that's how you get 9 single-digit numbers to make a single 9-digit number with adding them, right? You're not actually adding the numbers, you're adding them to a string. You're appending them to a string. This is actually a string prepend, right? Just like we're doing prepend right here, because you're prepending it to the front of the string. It's called type coercion. It's something that happens a lot in JavaScript. You see it all over the place. It's an advantage of JavaScript because it's so easy to do. It's a disadvantage because it's so easy to do. Depends on what you're doing.
And if it's still not clear what's happening, just do a console log of that number right inside this for loop. So every time you loop through, what you're going to see is that string building up as you go.
Yep.
So you're going to see the number go from 1 digit to 2 to 3 to 4 all the way up to 9 as you're going through the for loop.
Let's look at it together. See what that looks like. Okay. Which will be alright. So we've got this open. Generating numbers, right? Scroll down. Nice. Numbers. So if I console log. Come on. Random. Right here. Theoretically, we should see a number. that was off.
We need to reset Carson.
Yeah.
Coming off the res.
Console log lotto number, though. You'll see, this is all of them generating. It's a big long list. So it generates a 7 as a number. That's what the blue means. And the black is a string. 6 is a number. 67 is a string. 1 is a number. 167. 9. 9167. 2. 29167. You see what's going on here? It's turning it into a string and literally adding it to the front of the string.
What?
No, because it's I did it the other way. So this is random plus lotto number. Yeah, but that's a good point. If I change this to plus equals, absolutely. Now it's going to the end. Type coercion, powerful. Yep, there was no need for an array.
Well, I was trying to create like an unordered list on the page.
Oh, I see. I see. So you could prepend or append an li into a ul, but they're just prepending another div. Well, not even. They're just prepending raw HTML.
Yeah.
If you look at the elements after I click it a few times, right here in this H1, BRHR number, BRHR number, BRHR number, so on and so forth.
What's the HR?
HR is this little line. See this little gray line? It's really hard to see. It's just a separator, and you can style them, make them darker, make them thicker, whatever. And then the BR is the space, right? It's the break. Cool.
I tried essentially like appending a UL with an ID to the document ready function, but like when it loads the list and then in the button click, I was trying to add
Okay.
list elements to it.
And that makes sense. And you could still do it that way. Okay, so here's the deal. Chris is going to go over the homework for week 4. So obviously week 3 homework is due Saturday. Week 4 homework is the following Saturday. After he does that, if you want to stay, I will stay and go over more JavaScript concepts. If your brain is fried, go home and rest. Watch the recording tomorrow. I upped the quality on it, so it should be better now. We've got the full class this time, so everything's there. So if you want to stay, I'll go over whatever you want to go over. If you want to go over Git, whatever, until 10. Once 10 hits, we're out. Okay? But you have that half an hour, so if you're not too tired, let's take advantage of it. Alright, so Chris is going to take over, and if you want the instructions, the homework instructions, they are right here. So if you need to get these over to here, you just drag over the tab.
Okay. Up to the top. Thanks. Alright guys, so this week's homework is going to be pretty complex, and it's going to put together everything you've learned so far. So I want to just kind of go over the homework instructions first, and then I'm going to take you...
Drag to the right.
Oh, drag to the right. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to take you guys through a little kind of a intro to, or how do you say it? Like just going to run through an actual like solution, not the code, but basically we're going to serve it and go through that real quick. So anyways, so basically submit, on BCS, both your links and your github.io, and you'll basically create a new repo and then put everything in that repo, push that up. Here's option 1, kind of a layout of option 1, this image right here. And basically, I want you guys to read through the instructions on this one because it's pretty complex, and you want to understand the game logic before you start to code, right? Because if you understand what you want to happen, then it's easier to pseudocode, and then once you've pseudocoded it, then it's easier to kind of turn that into actual JavaScript. And so basically there's 2 options. There's option 1, option 2. Inside the instructions, it definitely says to you, if you don't feel really comfortable with all of the concepts we've learned already, then it's better to use to do the recommended, because the other homework is much more complex than the recommended. So if you're not super comfortable with everything, I would choose the recommended. This game is really, really complex. Doing well on it means that you've understood all the logic, and you know, like if you're not really comfortable with everything already, I wouldn't add, you know, like more complex logic than what we've got going on here on option 1. So basically, I think the best thing to do really would be to just go through this demo real quick. So basically, what you've got is, you know, I'm the player. I have a score and a target score, and I have a win count and a loss count. I'm gonna click on a crystal, and each of these crystals has a hidden value assigned to it, right? And then the target score and the crystal value is randomly generated between 1 and 12, and the target score is randomly generated between 19 and 120. And basically, when I click on one of these crystals, it's going to give me whatever that random score is, and it's going to add it to my score, right? If I'm under my target score, then I haven't lost yet, but I have to match my target score in order to win, right? And so the logic behind this is that I clicked the yellow one and got 8, so that brought me to 18. I clicked the red one, it gave me 2, so that brought me to 20. This green one gives me 8, and then that blue one gives me 2. It's all odd numbers, so just by luck, I cannot win this one, right? Now I've clicked and I've broken that score limit, the target score. The page says, sorry you lost. I click OK. My loss count increases, and then I reset my my game, right? So we're going to want to use a helper function to do the reset. When you generate these random numbers inside that helper function for reset, you're going to generate a new random number for the target score. So remember, use a helper function for things like that. And then you don't want to refresh the entire page, because if you do, you're going to lose your loss and win count. So you just want to reset your score, the target score, and the crystal selection values, right? And also, I think that's about it. I'm going to go through this other one right here. Your page can also look like this. Honestly, I would say that if you're really good with everything, this is what would be super awesome, but this is something right here that is quite acceptable, especially if you get all the logic right. On this one, I think we're more focused on logic than we are on display, right? Because what we see is a functional game here, right? And you know, we went over HTML, CSS really quickly, and we're in the JavaScript jQuery, and the JavaScript jQuery is the hardest part to learn. HTML, CSS, it will come to you, but I would say get the logic right, and then once you get the logic right, then move over to the display and make it look like this if you can. If you're really good and you really want to do the Star Wars game, then go ahead and do that. I didn't actually read through all of how the game works, but I guess, So you're picking your character and a defender, and then you attack them, and it says you attacked Obi-Wan Kenobi for 8 damage. Obi-Wan Kenobi attacked you back for 15 damage. And I guess you do that, and it looks like, yeah, you're going to decrement until one of you loses your, your hit points. So now you're Darth Sidious, and you've got 15, he's got 12. Let's see who wins. Whoa! You won. Let's see if you can get through this. It's 10 and 20 now. Wow, you won the game. Dude, I got super lucky. Obviously, I'm Yoda. Yeah, so let's restart now. Yeah, anyhow, that's what you do on that one. It's probably the logic there is much more complex. So I would really try to get this far, get your logic right, and then if you get this far and you've got time to work on the styling, then make it this. So, yeah. Any questions?
So are the point values randomly generated for the characters in the Star Wars movie?
I didn't read through the Star Wars one. I was going to let you guys do it. If you guys want to get into the Star Wars one, then definitely read through the instructions. you're gonna have to read through the instructions on this one. Read through them a couple times, so that way you really understand the logic. But yeah, I don't know much about the Star Wars one, but definitely read through the instructions if I can say that again. Any other questions? All right, I think you guys are good. Yep.
You put the salt to that last, like mine is broken.
I didn't want my